You know, we all think we know why markets crash. It's got to be panic, right? Fear, chaos. But what if that whole story is a myth? What if the real danger isn't the storm itself, but the long, quiet, sunny period that comes right before it? That's what we're going to dig into. And this quote just hits the nail on the head, right? The moments that feel the absolute safest are often the most dangerous. It's the reason why crashes always seem to jump out of nowhere, catching literally everyone off guard. All right, so first things first, we've got to tackle this big myth, the idea that crashes are just about a sudden switch from greed to fear. It's just not the whole story. You've seen the headlines, right? It's always the same narrative. Panic in the streets, a sudden psychological break. But that's just what's happening on the surface. The real cause is way deeper, and honestly, a lot more mechanical. And that's where things get really interesting. What if the real problem isn't a sudden emotional storm at all? What if instead, the seeds of a crash are actually planted nice and slow during those long, boring, stable periods when everything feels totally safe? To really get this, we're going to take a little detour. Forget finance for a second. Let's talk about, a wobbly bridge. It's a perfect real-world example of a system that basically brought about its own collapse. So picture this. Opening day for London's Millennium Bridge. Thousands of people are walking across. And suddenly, it starts swaying. Swaying so violently they had to shut it down. But here's the crazy part. There was no storm, no earthquake. The destructive force, it came from the people themselves, just from walking. So how in the world did this happen? Well, it was this crazy chain reaction. It all started with just a tiny random sway from people's footsteps. But then, to keep their balance, people unconsciously started to sync their steps with that little sway. And that synchronization, it made the sway even bigger, which made more people sync up, creating this powerful feedback loop that pushed the bridge to the brink. And this is a perfect illustration of what experts call endogenous risk. It's a fancy term, but it just means that the danger isn't coming from some outside force like the wind. No, the risk is being created and amplified by the people inside the system itself. So get this, the problem wasn't the wind. It was the bridge reacting to itself. Every single person was just doing the rational thing, trying to keep their balance, but altogether, they contributed to a collective disaster. Okay, so let's bring that bridge idea back to the world of finance. A long period of market stability, it acts just like that initial sway on the bridge. It slowly, unconsciously teaches everyone to walk in step, to use the same strategies, to buy the same things. Here's a great way to think about it. Roulette versus poker. In roulette, the risk is external, exogenous. Your bet doesn't change where that little ball lands. You're basically playing against physics. But poker, that's totally different. The risk is internal, endogenous. Every move you make changes the game for everybody else. You're not just playing the cards, you're playing against the system that all the players are creating together. And financial markets, they are a lot more like poker than roulette. So what are the financial versions of that bridge's sway? Well, you've got a few big ones. You've got risk models like VAR that all use the same data, so they all flash red at the exact same time. You've got successful strategies that get copied by everyone. And then you have this constant pressure for nice, stable returns, which pushes everyone into the same safe trades. The result? Everyone ends up marching in perfect lockstep. And this whole process has a kind of fancy name, entropy collapse. But don't worry, the idea is actually super simple. It just means that when everyone starts doing the same thing, the system loses its diversity. It becomes rigid and fragile. It's kind of like a forest with only one type of tree. It might be super efficient when the climate is stable, but a single disease could wipe the whole thing out. What's wild is that this happens because the system is trying to be efficient. It becomes perfectly adapted for calm weather, but in the process, it completely forgets how to handle a surprise storm. So you've got this super optimized but brittle system. What do you think happens when it finally gets a little shock? Well, a tiny little crack can cause the whole thing to shatter. And this leads us to maybe the biggest and most dangerous paradox of all. In these synchronized, brittle systems, the moments that feel the absolute calmest are often the most dangerous. Just look at this chart. This is mind-blowing. It shows that measures of systemic risk were plummeting to their lowest levels in years right before the 2008 financial crisis. The system was basically screaming all clear just as it was about to completely implode. There's this economist, Hyman Minsky, who just nailed it with this one simple, brilliant phrase: stability destabilizes. His whole point was that long periods of calm and stability actually encourage people to take on more risk, more leverage, until the entire system is just balanced on a razor's edge. And this is what he called the Minsky moment, the crash itself. But look at how it works. It's a mechanical process, not really an emotional one. Some small price drop happens. That triggers margin calls for leveraged investors. They have no choice. They are forced to sell assets. That selling pushes prices down even more, which, you guessed it, triggers even more forced selling. It's a vicious, self-reinforcing loop. So you see, it's not really about panic. It's about constraint. It's the physics of a brittle system shattering under pressure, not the psychology of a scared crowd. Okay, so if calm doesn't equal safety, then what does? This is where we need a totally new way of looking at risk and what makes a system truly resilient. You know, a truly healthy system, like a market, isn't a flat line. It's not supposed to be quiet. In fact, it's the exact opposite. A truly robust system is a little bit noisy, a little bit messy. It's full of disagreement. It's filled with a rich diversity of people all doing different things for different reasons. And this chart really brings it all home. Sure, low volatility and high liquidity are nice to have, but as you can see, the single most important factor for making a system resilient is behavioral diversity. And that is the very thing that disappears during those long, quiet periods of calm. So I'll just leave you with this final thought. This pattern, where optimizing for stability actually creates a hidden dangerous fragility, it isn't just in financial markets. Where else do you see it? Think about it. In your career, in our global supply chains, our ecosystems, once you have this mental model, you'll start seeing it absolutely everywhere. And that might just be the most important takeaway of all.